Hi, everybody. Good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are. And first of all, apologies. We started a little bit late. Usually we give a minute or two for people to dial in, but I think we're having some technical problems there, so we're ready to go. I would say we'll probably have about 20 minutes. We've timed it, I reckon, about 20, 25 minutes, depending on how much I deviate from the points on the screen. And then we'll have about 10 minutes at the end to answer any questions that you might have. And as Heather said, just put them into the chat box. And then Heather, I don't think I can see the chat box stuff come up, so whatever questions we do get at the end, just read them out to me.
Okay, no problem.
But you can see everything okay now, yeah?
Yeah, I can see everything clear. We're ready to go.
Okay, so for those of you who don't know me, I am Rowan O'Grady. I'm the president of Hayes in Canada here. I've been the president of the company since 2009. I've been with Hayes a long time, somewhere over 20 years in total. I've worked for the company. Most of that has actually been here in Canada now, but in the UK and Ireland as well. And I've recruited for all sorts of stuff over the years: permanent, executive search, contract, temporary. We've done a lot of work actually in the MSP and RPO industries over the last few years. And then I've covered, directly involved with a lot of different sectors: construction, engineering, financial services, technology. So I've got a good range of experience, dealt with a lot of companies in different sectors, large and small. So I think I've got reasonably good insights into what's happening. And hopefully you'll pick up a couple of things here over the next 20 minutes that might help you with your own work. So just a little bit of information about the salary guide. If you say, well, what is it, or how comprehensive is it? So our salary guide covers geographically across the country here in Canada. This year we had over 4,000 respondents. I think it's the most respondents we've had yet to one of our salary guide surveys. It covers multiple industries and functions, as in industry sectors, and then the departments within the organization, such as the accounting department, or the facilities department, or HR, or procurement. And really it's a combination of being a compensation and benefit guide. So we have information in there on what's the typical salary level for example, a chartered accountant with 3 to 5 years post-qualification experience working in a private sector organization with revenues of over 100 to 150 million. So just to give as an example, that's how we do it. So we look at the amount of experience that individuals have, and then we try and look at, well, what kind of company is the person working for, what size is the organization, typically the kind of projects that they might be dealing with. And we try and take whatever the key guiding factors are, or determining factors are, that dictate the salary of an individual, and we try and use that then for the different categories within the guide itself. And it's very easy to use document. Always aim for it to be user-friendly and simple. I know that there are a lot of industry association salary surveys out there, and while scientifically correct, I do find that sometimes they're a little bit difficult to understand and read, and we try and keep ours super simple. But to go along with the actual salary guide itself, we ask a series of questions which gives us insight into compensation and benefits trends. It gives insight into hiring plans for the coming year. And then we add all of that together with our own view in the market, and we always try and come up at least with some advice and recommendations for employers on what they can do. So that's about the guide. So what do you learn from this webinar over the next 20 minutes? So we've got 3 key things that we'd like to achieve. Number 1 is give you an update on the market from the employer's perspective, but also from employees or candidates or active job seekers' perspective. Secondly, highlight what the biggest recruitment challenges are, like what are the issues that employers are facing right now, and are they getting worse, or are they getting better, and what are they doing about it? And then just our own insights into to try and help you compete for local talent, or how you could stand out against your competitors. So away we go. So I'll start out with market overview and some hiring trends. So the first thing to say is that 2018 was a really strong year for the Canadian economy, and the good news is that most employers are expecting that to continue into 2019. It was almost half, 47% predicted the economy will remain as strong in 2019 as it was in 2018. And that's actually very, very encouraging, because the other percentages or the remaining questions or options for people on that question was, do you believe that it'll strengthen, weaken, or remain the same? 47% said remain the same. And I believe it was 40-something% said that it would strengthen. It was slightly below proportion of people who said that it would stay the same. And then it was a very small single-digit number saying that it would weaken. So given that we've just come off of, or we're about to finish, a really strong 2018, if the vast, vast majority of people feel that it will be the same again next year, if not get better next year, then that's probably the best that we've seen it for the last 4 or 5 years. We've been doing the survey for 9 years, and I would say this is probably the strongest that we've seen for about 4 or 5 years. And as you'd expect, business activity is increasing as well. 63% of people who responded to the survey said that they would expect business activity to increase into 2019. It varies depending on the industry sector, which I can pull out now. We're actually doing a series of webinars this week. We're focusing on some different industries like the construction and property industry and IT as we go through the week. But I'll just pull out a couple of the highlights for this. So looking at it from a regional point of view, first of all, so this is the percentage of employers who have seen increases in business activity, but have separated into some of the different major populations or the larger provinces. So BC was the province that saw the highest increase in business activity in 2018, almost 65% of people saying that happened there. Ontario was the next positive. Quebec was the next positive at 62%, forgive me. Ontario at 55%, and then Alberta the lowest at 46%, and obviously still trying to recover from the oil price crash in Alberta, but very, very positive in BC and Quebec, and not too bad in Ontario. The economic outlook, again, regionally, so percentage of employers who see the economy strengthening in the next 6 to 12 months. Little bit of a flip here, so Quebec being the most positive at 51%, expecting even better conditions in the coming year. Alberta expecting things to improve, albeit coming from probably a less robust position in the first place, but expecting things to improve nonetheless, which is fantastic and very encouraging, at 47%, followed by Ontario at 39%, and then BC at 37%. Now, bearing in mind that BC has been extremely positive anyway, maybe it would be too much to expect that things would get even better in the following year. But overall, I would say quite a positive outlook there, maybe with the exception of Alberta still recovering. And then by industry, if we look at fastest growing industries, so we just said let's pull out either industry sectors or populations of skill sets to say where is the highest amount or the highest degree of optimism coming from. So the industries or sectors where the people working there would be most likely to say that the economy will strengthen in the coming year. IT came in as the most positive, 46% of people there saying that it would strengthen, followed by resources and mining at 45%, which is quite encouraging, and again, probably good news for Alberta. Resource and mining had gone through a really difficult patch, and we've seen a huge increase in activity from that industry sector in the last year, followed by the construction industry at 43%. And then the industries and sectors that have seen the most business activity increases, well, the property and facilities management sector, 62% of people saying they've seen business activity increase. People working in the procurement profession, so that could be the procurement department within an organization, or it could also be like professional procurement consultancies. But 60% of people who work in, or would identify as working in procurement, saying that they've seen business activity increase. So I thought that was probably the most encouraging sign of positivity. If the procurement department is super busy, then that's generally a sign that the company is investing in the organization, whether that's in technology or equipment or resources in some way. It could be human resources. And then 58% saying that from the legal industry. So it'll be the hottest industries that we could see. Furthermore, all of the optimism about the economy is having a direct impact on hiring plans. So what kind of effect is it having? Well, in 2018, permanent staff levels increased. 46% of companies said that they increased permanent staff levels. 33% said that it remained the same. And then the outlook for the coming year, that's going up to 52% of companies saying that they plan to increase permanent staff levels. 37% saying it will remain the same. Now, I should say, just as a little a disclaimer, generally speaking, we find that people are more optimistic about the future. So whatever the percentage is that says they intend to increase permanent staff levels, it usually turns out to be a lower number. So if 52% are saying that they expect it to increase, generally speaking, when we survey them again next year and say, what did you do? It'll probably come in at high 40s, maybe 47, 48%, will have indeed increased permanent staff levels. But still, overall, very, very positive. And then looking at temporary staffing levels, same question. In 2018, have you increased temporary staff levels? 33% said that they did. And looking into 2019, 24% saying that they would increase their temporary staff levels. Ironically, or funnily enough, when you look at this, generally people they underestimate this one. So if 24% are saying we expect to use more temps or contractors, usually it comes out higher. So going in the past, if you're saying 24% are saying that's the case, it'll probably come through to be high 20s, maybe into 30% in reality. So I think generally speaking, people think they're going to hire more perm staff or more people think they're going to hire perm staff than actually do. And they generally use more temps than they would expect to as well. But overall, I would say this would all be in line with quite a positive and forward-looking outlook for most employers. Then just on the topic of temporary and contract workers, I'll just kind of deviate for a moment. So why are employers actually using contingent workers? We asked that very question, and we found a large amount of them do so just in order to address a skill shortage or productivity concerns. Specifically, 37% of employers hire contract workers for their specialist skills or experience. That makes sense, bringing in somebody with a unique skill set in response to a particular demand in the company. 35% use temps and contractors for short-term volume hiring. So think it could be seasonality. It could be seasonality demands of a particular industry. So it's planned increases in the workforce that could be short-term. And then finally, 31% saying that they use temps or contractors in response to an unexpected workload increase. That's something that we see a lot, where a company might win a project or something happens within the organization that maybe they hadn't planned for, and they can turn to us and say, look, we need help with this, and they could staff the project immediately with temporary contract workers and just have that kind of flexibility that you sometimes need. So what effect will all of this have and all of this positivity and optimism have on salaries? Well, I feel like I've said this now for multiple years, but the trend is continuing, that despite the optimism and confidence in the economy and confidence in the job market, the salary levels seem to tell a slightly different story. So this slide is looking at what the percentage of employers that are offering a company-wide salary increase of more than 3%. And you can see that since 2013, that was about 40% of companies were offering that, and that's dropped every year. Maybe with the exception of 2018, it seems to be pretty much exactly the same as 2017. 2019 is dropping again to now just over 20% of companies saying that they would offer more than 3%. So a conservative or cautious approach, that's a 41% drop of employers offering more than 3%. I think if I went back to look at it, I think I said that if 2018 turned out to be as confident as everybody expected it to be, or as positive as people expected it to be, that we would start to see a shift back towards a more than 3% increase, but we didn't. And what is happening there? Well, it could be multiple things. Our feeling on it is interest rates are still very low, although they've increased slightly, but not significantly. inflation, and obviously there's a connection between inflation and salary growth, but as long as inflation in Canada remains low, then I would expect that companies will probably at least match inflation levels of 1.5–2%. And then how come the shortage of skills isn't driving the 3% or more increase? And I would say that there's probably, despite the optimism, I think in the back of a lot of employers' minds, it's kind of going, well, let's go with the activity here, and if things are busy, great. But they can still remember downturns in the economy very, very recently, and maybe it feels overly ambitious to start implementing significant salary increases. So I think perhaps there is in the back of some employers' minds a degree of cautiousness. So we'll see what happens next year, but maybe the skill shortage will drive this eventually. And then conversely, and this could potentially be a problem, 61% of employers have increased salaries outside of their budget to recruit a specific candidate. So what we're saying here is, have you gone outside of your own salary guidelines to bring in a particular candidate or a skill set that you were having difficulties hiring? And the majority of companies have said, yeah, we have actually done that. And it makes sense. You know, if you really do need that person to be brought in and they're looking for 70,000, and you expected that you would pay 65, well, if the job needs to get filled, eventually I think that most employers will say, okay, well, look, if that's what we have to pay, let's just get on with it and do it. And what choice you have? Equally, if that becomes the policy, and simultaneously you're not increasing salaries in your own organization with the same level of enthusiasm, say, over time that could start to become a problem, that you could have a two-speed approach, that you'd be more willing to offer to bring in new people than you are to keep the existing people happy. And maybe that's a too simplistic or general view of the thing, but I think it is something just to be careful of and watch out for. Then we're breaking it down again regionally. So percent of employers who increased salaries by more than 3% in 2018 by region. You can see that BC, in line with the economic conditions that we've seen there and how busy most of the companies are in BC, they've got the highest proportion of companies offering over 3% at 35%, followed by Quebec, 31%, Ontario at 23%, and then quite a lowly number in Alberta, but to be completely understand the situation there, with only 13% offering over 3% there. If we look at the industry sectors, or industries/sectors that have increased salaries by more than 3% in 2018, if you work in the accounting and finance sector, and I think I'd include accounting, finance, financial services as one place, 29% of employers, they're reporting that they increased salaries by 3%. Construction being next, 25% of companies offering more than 3% there, followed by HR at 24%. Looking forward into next year, accounting and finance again comes out on top. 27% of employers in that sector saying they will increase salaries by 3%, followed by procurement. So again, very positive that it would be procurement as an insight. Finally, followed by property and facilities management for 2019. All right, so then I just wanted to bring up the skill shortage. It's not something that we spoke about much for the last couple of years. It seemed to go off the boil to some extent, as some companies were kind of struggling for survival, and the skill shortage wasn't as topical. But it seems to be back, and I'll just show you this slide here. This is a 4-year trend in employers reporting being affected by the skill shortage. So the question is, do you feel that you're being directly affected by the skill shortage, or experiencing pressures because of it? And this year, 82% of employers said that they're experiencing a moderate to extreme skills shortage, and that's increased from 2015 of around, I would say that's about, was at 65 to 67% in 2015. Pretty much the same in 16, an increase in 17, and then a very significant jump. So this all lines up, and it would reflect the increased activity that we've seen in the jobs market in the last 12 months. We then asked how is the skill shortage negatively affecting your organization? And there's two different effects that you could potentially have. One would be I'm getting a bit of feedback there, Heather. I'm getting an echo, Heather. Oh, it's gone. How is the skill shortage negatively affecting your organization? Well, from a business point of view, 60% of employers said it was negatively affecting productivity. 42% said that the skill shortage was actually affecting their ability to remain competitive. And 30% citing that it was having a direct impact on the amount of profit the organization could make, which would make sense. You know, if you can't find the right people, then you're not capitalizing on the opportunities that you might have. But there's also a human element to this. So we said from a people perspective, what effect is the skill shortage having on your organization? And then amazingly, this has gone up every year over the last few years, with 73% saying that the skill shortage is increasing workplace stress and pressures. Again, makes sense, but it is very, very high. Increasing inefficiencies, 47%, and staff retention, 44%. That's just to explain that. That's 44% of employers saying that the skill shortage is actually affecting their ability to hold on to their own staff. You say, well, that could be a vicious circle, as they say. You difficulties finding the right skill sets to bring into your organization. That adds pressure to your existing team, which could in turn cause the existing team to turn over. Not only can you not find the people you're looking for, but it could actually cause you to lose the people that you already have. So skill shortage is alive and well. And I would say if the market continues on going the way it's going, we'll continue to see increased negative effects of it. How are companies addressing the productivity concerns then? Just saying, like, what are you doing about this? And we like to keep an eye on this one. So lots of different things. The most popular one this year actually was change in processes and policies. So people trying to figure out ways to run their business more effectively. So that could involve reassigning roles to better match employee skill sets, removing overcomplicated processes and procedures, could be improving internal communication. However, employers have also made, they've probably put less investment into training. If you can see it here, internal training came in at 33%. When we asked this question last year, that was closer to 65, I think it was 65 or 70%. But in any event, it was a 58% drop in companies citing training as a way of dealing with productivity concerns. So I don't know whether that was just a coincidence in how the question was answered, or whether it's a reflection on companies saying, look, we're busy, we're trying to respond to the increased activity levels that we have in the organization, and we really don't have time for training right now. And what we need to focus on is just by being more efficient and trying to simplify processes. Now, that's me reading into what's happening behind the scenes, but worthy of noting that training seems to have fallen off as a top priority for some companies, at least. All right, how about attraction and retention challenges then that companies are looking at? So the biggest recruitment challenges in 2018, we said, like, what are the biggest challenges that you face to successfully execute your recruitment plan? So looking back to 2018, 52% of companies said that really it was all about the local competition. Everybody's trying to get the same candidates. Candidates are coming in to interview, and they might have done multiple interviews, and who knows, some of them might have multiple offers. Kind of along the same lines, but maybe a slightly different angle to it. 45% saying that the biggest challenge is the salary or total compensation that candidates are actually looking for, and it becoming something that they would perceive as not being affordable. And then the third biggest challenge that companies have faced is just not having the correct level of candidate network. So 31% of companies saying the lack of candidate network was causing it to be too difficult for them to hire, which makes sense. You know, are you investing enough time in building that network out so when you are looking for somebody to fill a new job, then you know where it is that you need to go. We asked what were the main reasons that employees were considering leaving the current role. The top one this year came in at salary levels, so 31% said that salary or total compensation was the biggest driver on employees leaving, followed by career growth opportunity at 25%, and then company culture coming in at 20%. Interestingly, if you go back only 2 years ago, it was in a different order. It was actually career growth opportunity was the biggest influencing factor, followed by salary, and that seems to have switched back. Our view on that as to why that would change would be the hotter a market and the more confidence there is out there, the more confidence that individuals or employees or candidates have about the salary level that they should be looking for. If they know that there's a lot of opportunity out there, if they've had a look around, that story about is now the time that I should be looking for a salary increase, that really comes back on the agenda. When things aren't so great on the general market, I think people are a little bit more focused on, am I learning, am I progressing? But anyway, so they swapped around. Even still, salary and career growth have been the top two things, and they continue to be. 41% of respondents said at the time of the survey that they're seriously considering leaving their current role. And again, that number has gone up in the last year, and it's a reflection of how confident people feel about the job market. How are employers making their company more attractive to recruit top talent? So what are the strategies that they're using for this? The number one answer is competitive salary packages, and that's followed by competitive benefit packages, and that makes a lot of sense, bearing in mind that they were the most influential factors on people considering leaving. Then promoting company culture, quickly followed behind salary and benefits at 50%, which is great to see. And then it dropped down to 39% companies saying they're offering training and professional development. And again, another drop down to 31%, where they're saying they're promoting career progression that might be available in the organization. And there is a little bit of a mismatch there when you think about that. Only 31% are the 1, 2, 3, the fifth most popular angle to attract top talent, when if you go back to the previous slide, it's the second most influential thing that makes people consider leaving their current job. And then I just said we'd put this in. I thought it was interesting. 19% of employers said they're not doing anything to attract top talent. They post their ads, and that's pretty much it. They're not thinking about it from an attraction point of view. Good news is that 81% are, but it does mean 19% of companies out there could easily do a better job by at least trying to attract more people to their organization. Something else that has come in recently is just what is going on with recruitment technology that's available out there, and what impact is that going to have on the recruitment process? Will it make things easier or better, or even understanding it seems to be the challenge. 83% of companies said that they would like to use artificial intelligence or machine learning or automation for their internal recruitment strategy in the coming year. And when we asked how are artificial intelligence and machine learning actually going to affect hiring and recruitment, 60% of employers said they didn't really know or couldn't answer, which I think is the perfect insight into recruitment technology right now. I think most employers know that they would like to do something about this, but the vast majority don't really know what's going to happen and don't really know what they should do. We could probably do an entirely new webinar about that particular topic. There's lots and lots of technologies out there right now. I would say you should be doing something, whether it's as simple as setting up your LinkedIn page so people can apply directly from there using their LinkedIn profile, whether it's as basic as an applicant tracking system or a system to track previous applications. Could be automated questions when people apply to rule in or out some of the candidates. It could be video interviewing, but there's a lot of technologies right now that are improving the process. And if you do have the time, that it is well worth setting it aside to try and invest in that, to at least try and keep up with some of the changes. All right, now we're going to focus on how to attract and retain talent, and especially given what we know about the top recruitment challenges that our employers are faced with. So here we've got three key things that we would look at. The first point is, even though we know that salary is very, very important to people, and we know it's probably the most important thing, that it's important to not put too much of an emphasis on it. It is one piece of the puzzle, but it isn't everything. So our advice here would be, try and know what your people are actually looking for and what candidates expect and what they're looking for as well. So you would do that by, number one, talking to your employees about your top concerns and priorities. So whether it's a simple employee engagement survey, we conduct one every year here at Hayes for our employees in Canada. It could be as simple as the president of the organization or the human resources leader of the organization just sitting down with employees and asking them that question about what is most important to them and what are they looking for. Sure, sometimes it is salary, sometimes it's things that you haven't even thought about. But the starting point should be asking as opposed to assuming that you know what they're looking for. Secondly, bringing in outside information is fantastic. So researching market expectations to learn about what's on the list of priorities for candidates. So this salary guide, the Hayes Salary Guide, is a great example of that. As I said, there's lots of industry association publications that would give insight there as well. But the point is, try and bring in outside information. If you believe that a job pays $60,000, well, that's great. But what does the market say? And is there a way of challenging your thinking to find out, are we actually really paying at market rate or not? And then finally, when making changes to benefits, try and target the most wanted benefits first. That might seem obvious, but over the years, we've seen companies focus on benefits that they're bringing in. So I remember actually for a period of time, there was a lot of talk about bringing in flexible work hours or work from home options. The companies were trying to do that and responding with something, whereas what people were really looking for was increased vacation time. So let me decide how I want to use my time off, as opposed to, for example, a flexible hour at the beginning of the day or a flexible hour at the end of the day, and trying to prioritize those things to respond to what people are really looking for, as opposed to maybe what the company thinks. The second most impactful thing on making the company more attractive or retaining more people would be trying to introduce and promote career paths and development. Now, it's easy to say, emphasize career opportunities. A lot of the time, our clients will say, well, that's great, but I know that the leader of this particular department isn't going to be going anywhere. They're not retiring for another 10 years. The company isn't growing that much. So I can't promote people just for the sake of it when it isn't a real advancement. And I think that's fair. That's a fair point. And I think you can undermine your structure by giving promotions where it doesn't really mean anything. But something that we see coming through, and we hear it every day from candidates, is that career growth and professional development doesn't necessarily always have to mean a promotion or a salary increase. It could be simply just learning new things, being given a new challenge. We've seen companies actually be very successful in doing things like job swapping. So you could move somebody from one department, one department in the organization to a different department, or somebody could stay within department and simply change their role. And it has a really, really positive impact on individuals because they feel, right, I'm learning something new. This is good. In reality, they might have just made a lateral move in the organization. But career development and professional development frequently is just about learning new things. So looking beyond job titles and promotions. And then finally, prioritizing the messaging is really important. So something we see happening frequently is companies don't think about how important the message around career paths and development is, in particular for some of the more junior intermediate level candidates. I would say that junior and intermediate level candidates today are as much, if not more, interested in career progression than people were 10 years ago. And it's something that gets discounted all of the time. You could have a very positive impact if you were to prioritize that messaging, whether it's on the job ad that you've placed or during the interview process. It would have a very positive effect. And then finally, growing your network and promoting your offering, sharing success stories. So number one, build your network on social media to reach passive candidates. Number two, share content that engages candidates to keep them interested in your company. And number three, show candidates why they should want to work for you. Sometimes companies struggle with what content to show or to share. We've seen some companies have some real success by simply broadcasting externally the news that is typically seen as internal. So broadcasting on the social media feed, promotions, new hires, people completing training programs, people being given awards in the organization. In the old days, that was always communicated internally. There's actually a huge opportunity to promote that externally. You get the same level of recognition, but you're actually displaying to potential employees what it's like to work inside your organization. So there's a really big win there. All right, that's pretty much it. So I'll just do a quick summary now and next steps. It looks like I've actually overrun there, so I'll try and move along quickly, and then maybe we have time for a couple of questions. So our summary is, number one, very positive economic outlook, but salaries remain steady for now. Number two, I would expect in 2019, I don't know about a hiring frenzy, but we forecast that hiring activity for 2019 is going to be even greater than was seen in 2018. Businesses decreased productivity because of the skill shortage, that it is starting to bite, and that is something to watch out for. And four, technology will continue to make an impact, not just on the recruitment industry or that, but obviously on all industries. And hopefully there are positive changes, and it's something for everybody to try and keep an eye on. All right, so actions that you can take. Number one, I would encourage you to request your copy of the salary guide. I'll show you how you can do that in a moment, and compare your salaries to what's going on in the market. Number two, try and assess your current training program and figure out, is there ways you can enhance or support career growth within the organization, again, away from simply promotions. And then promote growth and training plans when you're hiring, and try and build that into your value proposition. It will all have a positive effect. So we can have a look at questions now, but if you're interested in requesting a copy, you can go to hayes.ca/resources. We have all of our reports and market research on there. You can click on the salary guide piece and request your copy, and we will be in touch. And that is it for now. And again, apologies for the late start, and I think I did overrun there a little bit. So Heather, do we have any questions that we wanted to have a look at?
Yes, we just have a few questions came in there. First one is, I've been told I can't raise salaries the next fiscal year. What can I do to keep my team from looking elsewhere?
That's a good question, actually. What can I do? So I've been told I can't raise salaries. What can I do? I think part of it is to try and figure out, you can't do everything all of the time. And there's an affordability question on everything that an organization does in response to what their employees are looking for. But like I said, there's a whole range of things, whether it's the benefit side of it, whether it's vacation time, whether it's flexibility that you're offering, whether it's training and development. I think that people, and all of us are employed by somebody, or most people are anyway, are fairly reasonable, and they would understand the situation. I think the key thing is that the company is trying to do something to improve almost every year. You know, is it possible to invest in training and development one year? Is it possible to maybe increase time off or vacation the next year? Maybe the year after that is the year that you deal with salaries. But I think trying to be proactive and understanding what the organization is looking for, and then showing that there's continuous improvement. I think that's the key, that maybe you can't do everything, but that there's continuous improvement. And I think most people would understand you can't improve everything every single year. But as long as there's movement in the right direction, then I think most people would be encouraged by that.
I think we have time for just one more question. This one asks, I know lots of people look for new jobs in January. How do I, as an employer, stand out to those figures?
Did you say, how do I, as an employer, stand out to those candidates?
Correct.
Yeah. Well, I suppose that's one of the biggest questions. There isn't one single answer that you can do, but I would say there's a process that you can go through. The first one is trying to ask yourself, what is it that we have to sell? Like, why do people like working for our organization? And you can ask people in your company, why do they like working for your organization? Why would somebody choose to work here? What's our value proposition to employees? And how clear are you about it? And the sense check is, do you believe that that's something that would appeal to the kind of people that you're trying to attract to the organization? So I think that's the first thing. The second thing is trying to get consistent with that message. So on the ads you've posted online, to what it says on your careers page, on your website, to if you're using an internal recruiter or an external recruiter, are they on message and talking about the same thing? And then when the candidate comes in to do the interviews, does the message stay consistent? And I think if you can have a very clear value proposition, and if you're very clear about that message when candidates are going through the process, it really builds confidence. And obviously, that message needs to be authentic. It can't be something that you've just made up and it isn't actually really true. And then the final piece is how to get that message out there. And I think companies know that they should be using social media. Sometimes they're not really sure what is it that they should be doing with it. And I think the best and easiest thing that I've seen companies do over the last year or two is taking all of the positive news that's coming out of the organization and promoting that through social media as a way of showing, kind of like bringing the outside in or bringing the inside out, depending on what way you want to look at it. And showing people, if you were working here, this is what you would experience, this kind of recognition, this kind of promotion, this kind of positive attitude. And there's lots of great things going on in lots of companies. They just don't talk about it enough. So I think they could do a better job at broadcasting those things. And obviously you've got the added benefit of the internal recognition for the people that you're talking about. So yeah, I would say those things in a maybe a simplistic way of looking at it, but I think all of those things would have a positive effect.
Okay, I think that's all we have time for today. I'll just remind people that the hard copy of the salary guide will be available next week. If you want to request a hard copy, you can email marketing@hayes.com or you can contact your local consultant. A digital copy of the guide is available online on January.
All right, well, there's something wrong with your mic there, Heather. I don't think anybody can hear you properly. We'll have to have a look at that. But if you didn't pick that up, the easiest way to request a copy would be to go to hayes.ca/resources, and you'll be able to request a copy of the salary guide there. If you did have any questions that we didn't answer, apologies, you can drop me an email, rowan@hayes.com, and I can answer the question directly, or if we can help you with anything, regardless of how big or small, let us know. We'll do our best. So thank you very much for dialing in. We really appreciate your time. And best of luck for the end of the year, and good luck. I hope you have a prosperous 2019 ahead of you.